to Sunset After Dark podcast. My name is Robert, and with me is Ryan Blankenship, the GM of Sunset Hill Subaru. And in today's episode, we are going to cover a couple of topics. First and foremost, we're going to cover what it's like to buy a vehicle in today's market, and we're also going to cover doc fees. What are they? Why are they here? Why do they exist? And first, Ryan, let's get a little bit of backstory about you, how you came into being a GM here at Sunset Hill Subaru.
Oh gosh, I mean, how much time is this podcast? Well, I've been here since the fruition of Sunset Hill Subaru and the last couple of years of Webster Grove Subaru, which is the franchise that my business partners purchased and that I became a part of and a partner of. That happened back in 2018? Yeah, 2018 now. And it's been a great ride. But before that, I worked at Subaru of America, who is, our franchise holder. Right.
What were you doing for them?
Oh gosh, I did a bunch of jobs for them. I was a district manager at one point. I jumped in with them as a management trainee after I left my first round of retail at a dealership. And then from there, I was district manager in two different districts, both down in Texas. And then I got a promotion to a zone marketing manager up in Minneapolis. Then went to Chicago and was a dealer development manager, basically franchise development, facilities, everything legal around the franchise, assigning points, buy sells, etc. And then from there into distribution for our region. So who gets cars, how many cars, etc. And from there, that led to here.
So it's been 6 years since you've been here, huh?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. It's because you're originally from Massachusetts, right?
Yep, I'm originally from outside Boston, about 45 minutes outside, a small town called Leominster. Small town for out there. Here it's sizable. It was 56,000 person city. Yeah. So, grew up there, lived there, worked there. Just didn't go to college there.
Yeah. And then you kind of got bounced around from to Texas. So you started off in Boston and to Texas.
Yeah, I call it the equivalent of my military days. Only because service members tend to move around a lot, and when you work for corporate Subaru, you will tend to move around a lot.
Yeah, you get bounced around.
Yeah, very much so. So, if you want to keep your career moving, the opportunity you want is probably not directly in front of you.
Right.
Especially if you take the rep route, which I did. Because when you're in the rep, you have territories all across the United States, and you have regional offices in 12 different cities, or regional offices in 3 different cities, and then zone offices in 12 cities. So,
and I'm assuming that's how you met the Karrases, is through your...
Yeah, through my very first district.
Very first district.
Yep, my very first district. I was out of Texas. We were doing a whole realignment across the country for Subaru as to who was covering what. And at that time, Karras' store in Memphis, along with a couple others, were getting put into our Dallas zone. And they're still part of the Dallas zone today, but came over to them. That was my first district. Actually, my partner Jay, I think he was fairly new getting back into the business at the same time that I was coming in as his rep, and became friendly. And
that's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote, yeah. Yeah. Kept in touch throughout the years. I mean, I moved on and everything, but we were at dealer meetings and everything, would see each other, hang out for a little bit, and heck, it all led to here.
So how long have you been in the automotive industry altogether?
This would be my 23rd year.
Okay, so you've been around for a while.
I've been around for a while.
You don't look old enough to be in the
No, this is technically the middle of my 3rd career. Okay. I started at a Hyundai dealership out of college.
No kidding.
Which is not traditional. You don't just go to a Jesuit Catholic college like I did, and then 2 months later said,
I think I'm going to sell cars.
I'm going to sell cars, but that's pretty much what I did.
Yeah.
And, I always loved cars. I mean, people that know me who see the amount of cars that I go through,
right.
you know,
like personal wise or
personal cars. Yeah. They're never damaged. They're always pretty good. But
Yeah.
like that's just me. I've always loved cars.
Yeah.
And it was like one of these ones where it was like, let's give this thing a try. Turned out I was pretty darn good at selling cars.
Yeah.
Which I did not know I was going to be at.
Yeah.
And
why do you think that is? Is it personality, being able to talk to people? Because I found in the success that I've had in the automotive industry is just being personable and being able to talk to people is like the biggest piece of it.
That's the biggest thing, following up. There are people who get jaded in this business.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is they will start doing what we call pre-qualifying. And what that means is a salesman will think they have the ability to look at a customer and say they're buying a car today versus they're not buying a car today. And they want to find the person that's buying a car today. And they feel like some, not everybody, will feel like, oh, if I'm with the person that, they might want to take 2 hours of my time test driving and all this other stuff. They're afraid. They're not thinking, hey, if I treat them well,
even if they don't buy a car,
hopefully they will buy a car.
Right.
Because coming to the dealership for a lot of people is the equivalent of being like, this isn't fun for them.
Yeah.
Like I find it fun.
Yeah.
But to a lot of people out there, it's the equivalent of going to the dentist office. And car shopping is not something that they enjoy doing. And I've taken it personally, like if you've taken your time out of your day to come here, you're pretty serious. I might not have exactly what you want, but you are interested. And so I never understood salesmen that would look at somebody and go, they're not a buyer. And me being green when I got into the business, I took everybody.
Right.
It didn't matter if you looked homeless coming off the city bus. I was like, hey, you stopped on the lot? Okay, well, you took a bus, you need a car.
Yeah.
Let's try to find you something.
Let's get you something. When I first got into internet sales, I was with Sugar Ford, and it started in 2019. So I'm still kind of feeling things out and learning here.
Right.
But I was always taught to never qualify your customer. That's not my job.
No.
Right? It's not my job to qualify you.
It's always been, like, managers always tell salespeople don't qualify.
But they do.
But they still do.
It's kind of in their nature.
Well, because there's always, there's a jealousy aspect. When you're watching another salesperson sell a car, you're kind of like, shoot, I was tied up with this person.
I could have had that.
And I could have had that one.
Yeah.
And they get upset about it, Yeah. And then they're kind of like, then they start being pickier, being like, oh, I want the guy that came out of our brand and this and that, or whatever ridiculous thing they built up into their head as this is their buyer. And then they kind of latch onto that.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get right into our first talking point here. In your 23 years experience in the car business, how has buying a vehicle, new or pre-owned, how has that changed in the last 23 years? And I know COVID had a huge impact on that.
COVID's had the most recent impact. It is so different today. And even before COVID, like 2018, 2019, that was a lot different than when I got into it. And that's a lot different than when the people that trained me and taught me what I know, when they got in the business, it was super different.
Yeah.
Like you had, for example, Robert, you work in our business development centers, in different capacities, and you've done lead handling, and you do lead handling to a degree today. But back when I started, lead handling wasn't really a thing.
Right.
A majority of dealers wouldn't have a website.
Right.
A lot of them would. If they did, it was like
very limited.
It was a very limited, like, hey, here's our address. It was almost like they were using a web page as being like their yellow page ad, And yes, we still had a yellow page ad back when I started at that time. You can't even find yellow pages really anymore. But it was that, and there were different parts that kind of started taking off during those early years of my career. Like dealer websites would actually start showing cars. A lot of dealers didn't have inventory on their website.
They sure as hell didn't have pricing.
They definitely didn't have pricing. Oh, I mean, when I first started, I didn't know the pricing on any of our used cars.
Okay, so back at it for the third time. 23 years ago, we
Yeah.
were just talking. There was hardly any websites. If there was, it was just like an old DOS kind of like digital thing, and it just had like a street address and a phone number on it.
Yeah, it very much they looked a lot like websites that your grandma would make today.
Yeah.
You know,
Very basic HTML.
very, very basic HTML, maybe a couple of images. I think our big one was that like when you would like highlight over a model, the picture would expand, and that was our big ooh.
Yeah.
But you couldn't click on it, and it would
Yeah.
tell you absolutely nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was our little thing, and I'm sure it garnered absolutely zero traffic. I mean, it built zero leads. Like we got no leads from that website. Leads at that time used to come from like Auto by Tel, Cars.com. I think those were the two big ones back then. Occasionally you'd see like Edmunds and Auto Trader, you know, who were kind of at the forefront of the information phase for consumers at that time. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of really good data then. It's a lot of really good data now that went on those same websites. I think they might have had more data then than they do now, to be honest with you, because they used to be able to get super granular. Like you could get, I mean, it's a little bit trickier now, but they used to just give you straight up invoices on there. You could like build your car exactly how it would be and give you the exact invoice price. Mm-hmm. Now they kind of say they're still kind of accurate, but they're like, oh, this is your range.
Right.
Where before it was like, no, you're dead on accurate.
Yeah.
You know, now it's like the accuracy is there if you know what to look for, but they still try to like show you the range of it, and you're like, well, those two ranges don't make sense, and this customer can't come and buy it for the low end of your range. There's the actual invoice, and you kind of have to play around with it a little bit there.
Yeah.
But it was difficult, like I said. You didn't have a lot of customers. It was a lot more of what I would call like old school selling versus now.
Yeah. So one thing, my dad was always been into cars, old cars, particularly like 1950s cars. Uh-huh. And back in the day, I remember having Auto Trader come out to the house and take pictures of his car that he wanted to sell. And that was literally the best way to sell a pre-owned vehicle at that time.
Oh, yeah.
And you buy them for like 25 cents or $1 or whatever it was. And then you'd get a phone call from somebody saying, hey, I'd like to come look at your car.
Oh, yeah.
And then now we move forward 30 odd years. And Auto Trader is owned by Cox Automotive, who is like the leading like digital like provider for the automotive industry. So it's just interesting to.
I will say Cox has been, for anyone that's not in the industry, that's perhaps listening or watching this, Cox Automotive is absolutely enormous.
It's huge. Like they own so much.
Like when people talk about like, oh, car business, like no, they control a whole lot more of how you buy a car than people can actually realize. Like, okay, so take for example, what would you say, Robert, is the gold standard for if you were at home and a customer to look up the value of your trade-in?
Kelley Blue Book.
Owned by Cox Automotive.
Right.
Okay, so now we use Kelley Blue Book Automotive, but ours is a little bit more simplified. We use a tool called vAuto.
Yeah.
Very, very standard in the industry. You're either using vAuto or you're using a vAuto clone.
Yeah.
Like every dealership across the country. Well, vAuto is owned by Cox Automotive. Most dealers, a lot of dealers use for dealer websites. Dealer.com.
Yeah.
Owned by Cox Automotive. If you're going to finance a car through me, or 95% of retail dealerships in the world, you're probably going to use DealerTrack as dealer software for plugging you into the banks.
Yeah.
That's owned by Cox Automotive.
They should probably be careful on monopoly here, right? Because it seems like they've got a huge market share of all of the digital retailing products that we use today, like the vast majority of it.
And I think the only reason they don't is only because the general consumer and the general knowledge base of the average person does not think that how much of like this business revolves around them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and that's not even talking. I mean, Cox is huge. I mean, they own TV stations, radio stations.
Really, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, Cox. That's Cox Media. You know,
yeah.
But Cox Automotive. Gosh, I mean, you can go up and down, and they just keep buying more and more, and just like. Okay, if you're going to use the software that we use to communicate, well, we use Dealer Socket, and that's owned by Cox Automotive.
They own that too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so is Vin Solutions.
Yeah, I knew they owned Vin.
Yeah, they own both.
I did not know that at all.
They own them both.
I thought Dealer Socket was its own, like a separate company.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I always thought they were all one and the same. I mean, a dealership could be spending easily $10,000 a month. Just with Cox.
Just with Cox Automotive.
Yeah, very easily.
That's crazy.
I mean, that's just every single dealership.
Yeah.
You know, you just start thinking about that, and you're just like, wow.
Yeah. So, I guess my next question is for better or for worse, has digital retailing, internet sales, has that? Elaborate on that a little bit.
Like how that's evolved?
Yeah, like for better or for worse.
I say it's evolved for the better. For
dealerships and the customer, or
I would say for both.
Yeah.
I would say it definitely has made as long as you're using it correctly, or as a consumer, or once you get the gist of it, of how to actually work your way through the system, so much easier than what it used to be. I mean, before, like I said, when I started, CRMs didn't exist.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you guys have like a Rolodex or something with the people that came in if they didn't buy? Like, how would you keep track of all that?
So walk-in traffic, we used to keep on literally I wouldn't call it a Rolodex. We used to just call it our white sheets.
Okay.
And so behind the sales desk, you just have a log. It was just a big paper log. And every month, you'd start day one, and you would go through, and every customer that was brought to the desk, or like any of their information that they got, they would bring to the desk. Line one, Mr. John Smith came in here to look at a 2001 Subaru Forester. His trade is a 1995 Ford Taurus, and that's it. Here's his phone number. That's all the information you get on the log. And then as more customers in, you fill out that page. The next day, you flip the sheet and you start over. And then how we would follow up is the sales manager would get the whole sales staff in front of him.
And then hand each
page
one.
Page one. Robert, you had Mr. John Smith on Monday with his 95 Taurus looking at an 01 Forester.
Why didn't he buy?
Yeah. What do we do? Where do we leave him at?
Yeah,
call him up and see if we saved him $500, if that would make him come back. Like, and then you just keep going up and down the list.
Being in the internet department, I've always wondered how they cut track of all of it. Like,
and so
it's crazy because there's so much that you have to know. The system does it for you.
Yeah, there was very, very little follow-up. I remember when I got my very first email program, that would basically kind of organize it, where I could do templates, and that was like, gosh, what year is that? I think that was 2005. And then we could start doing that and start doing bulk emails, and you could start automating some of it, because before that you were just sitting there using
typing individual email. And
you were using Microsoft Outlook. Email would come in, and you would go, okay, copy and paste the basic text from my last one I had to kind of save me time.
Yeah.
Put in the name, put in their model, put in the new price, ship it out, see what happens, and that was it. And then very rarely would there be a lot of follow-up. But I did that working as a sales manager. I would actually work internet leads. And it was always a surprise to me how many customers would come in. And this is where I knew way back in the time machine, 20 years ago, how big internet was going to be. Because suddenly I was selling, even though I wasn't the salesperson on the deal, But I was getting 20 to 30 customers a month to come in from the internet. And usually they told me like, yeah, you were actually the only one that replied to my inquiry.
Wow. Okay.
And it got me, and I'm just like, man, all these people are missing this kind of gold mine.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, okay, this is going to be huge. And I would still, and it was funny to me, that was 2005. 2008, 2009, I'm starting to sit in front of dealers, and they're all telling me what a big fad this internet thing is.
You're like, yeah.
And we don't even embrace it. We ignore it. I'm sitting there, I'm like, how, what?
Yeah.
Like, you should sell. And a lot of them eventually did.
Yeah.
That thought in that old school mentality that the internet's a fad and everything else, and that's not how we do business.
Yeah.
And
now it would be difficult to do car sales without the internet right now.
Well, right. A lot of how consumers buy now has completely changed.
Yeah.
From 23 years ago. Not just us, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in retail all day long, and it's same here.
I can't speak of anything prior to 2019, but what I have noticed with internet car shoppers is they're very well informed. Mm-hmm. They know what they want. They know what they can get.
Yeah.
They know the different options. Sometimes they know a little bit more about the car than I do, which is kind of embarrassing. And I'm like, I'm going to have to look that up to verify it.
I think that's a little bit more of a Subaru thing than anything.
Okay. Because it just seems like these, I've had very customers like this. I know I can get this and I can get that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of helped them in the sense that because they can educate themselves, they can go on, they know what they can get, they know what they can do. But then on the flip side, for the dealership, it kind of allows for another way to get leads. So they're no longer like just having to walk in or call up. They can.
Yeah, if you actually like examine all right, so if you did business 23 years ago to today, I can use the numbers at our store as a kind of an example of that. So, not that I have our data from 23 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm just saying, at the store I was at, I would say new and used, we were probably at that time 15-20% of our business was internet. And we were extraordinary on internet compared to most. I would say most dealers in 2001 range was probably anywhere from 1 to 8%.
It's crazy.
Today, I mean, our store here alone is over 50%.
I was going to say it's closer to 60. I thought it was.
It's 50 to 60% on the people that we know have gone through the internet
That's
process.
true. Yeah.
That doesn't account for people who already have done all their internet shopping and they just show up.
Right.
And then tell the salesperson, oh, I saw this car on your website.
Right.
It seemed like the one I want. That doesn't even count that.
What would you think that number would be? Would that be more of upwards of 80?
I think you get 80, 90%.
Yeah.
Like, it's very rare now that you have the person that came in with absolutely no clue.
Yeah.
Almost no clue.
Yeah.
Which was a lot higher when I first started, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started, you still had people that were buyers that were, because if I'm not mistaken, I think up until the 80s, you could actually buy you could actually buy a truck that had no window sticker. Like Monroney's didn't go. Monroney's didn't go on pickup trucks well after cars got them because they were trucks,
and they weren't required.
And they weren't required to have Monroney's. The people that taught me were telling me of those days. Like, this is how funny it is, where it's like I'm hearing stories from like 15, 20 years before I get into the business.
Yeah.
Just like I'm telling people now about 20 years ago in the business and here.
Yeah.
And they were telling me, like, yeah, you'd have people come in and the truck would have, like, MSRP on the truck would be under 10 grand. And they would tell someone it's like 18 grand, they'll give them 13 grand for their old truck. And they'll be like, oh, wow, this is a deal. Mind you, they're selling it 10 grand over what the manufacturer says it should be.
Yeah.
But there's no window stickers.
So
people are getting more than what they think, but that's on paper,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so people are like, oh, my truck. And then when they did come out with window stickers, and people were like,
wait a minute,
I paid more than that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then why is my truck worth so much less?
Yeah.
You know.
You think that's how kind of like the sales business kind of got disreputable character?
Absolutely.
From the 70s and 80s?
Yes. Oh, even before that.
Even before then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, like, whatever you do, don't buy the undercarriage thing, you know, like it's a ripoff kind of. I remember that being a thing when I was a kid.
They don't buy the what you call it, the rubberized undercoating.
The undercoating.
Undercoating or the Simonized system and all this other stuff. There was all sorts of those things, but a lot of it was just simply there was no education about anything. You
had to take the word of the dealer too, or the sales rep too, right? Who's trying to sell you this vehicle, so you're gonna have to trust him because you don't know any better, right?
Right. Now there were plenty of dealers that probably didn't take advantage, but a lot that did.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the problem that we still live with today.
I was going to ask you about that stigma. We're still kind of going through that.
Yeah, and it's a very hard one to fight because it's when you have a running joke or a running idea of something that has been fostered for 70 plus years.
Yeah.
It's very hard to change that. I mean, and then you have people that don't understand a dealership, or as we call it now, an automotive retailer. They don't understand it as a business.
Right.
And they think they know, but they really don't. And so there's so much misconception about how the business works.
Right.
That they think that we all just sit around all day and think of like, man,
ways to get them out of their money.
Yeah, how can I rip this old shit? Let's do that. How can let's just go back a little bit here. Sorry about that, Robert.
Oh, you're good. Actually, I wasn't on camera at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just knocked over Robert's camera. My bad. I'm clumsy. But where was I?
Well, we were kind of talking about like the stigma of.
Oh yeah, I mean we're still paying for our sins of our past here. They don't understand how the business works. They don't understand we don't sit around a coffee table all day think about, man, how can I bilk every last penny of that old lady grandma that came in here?
Yeah.
It's not a thought anymore. Not that I think it was really a thought to begin with, but it is a business that is trying to be profitable. I'll
say, like, in my experience, like, I look at my position here in the BDC as like a way of helping customers.
Yeah.
You need something, let me help you with that. And I will be transparent and honest as possible, sometimes to a fault, right? But at the end of the day, I'm only trying to help you. I am trying to help you spend your money.
Right.
But I am also trying to help you get a fair deal. And if you ask me my honest opinion, I will give you my honest opinion whether or not it's going to lead to a sale or not.
Absolutely. I mean, people, I think there are two really good ways of selling cars and buying cars, and then I think there's what is the majority of what you see out there,
Yeah.
And from both sides. And what I'm saying by that is, when we were going through the pandemic and like, we never marked cars up here. I don't believe in marking cars up over MSRP. I think that is a ripoff, because as someone that works in this, and I live and breathe and die by this, the markup from the manufacturer I feel is fair. They give us an invoice price. Yeah. There are some brands that do not give a fair invoice amount. Like I've seen Nissans that have a higher invoice cost than the MSRP. Yeah.
How does that work?
Because they know they're going to have some back-end money and other things to mark it down, but they really can't. They're marketing, selling the price to a customer. Like they'll mark that we're the cheapest car that you can buy. Like they did that with the Versa when it came out. And it was like, okay, great. So if you're a customer and you used to coming in and being like, all right, give me $1,000 off that Versa, dealer's like, hell no.
Yeah.
Unless they got extra money coming back. Mm-hmm. So when we were going through the pandemic, we didn't really have any of that. It was like, for us, it was like we're selling at MSRP, and because we have a shortage of inventory.
Yeah.
And if those guys over there want to sell it $10,000 over, I wouldn't do business with them. But if you want to, knock yourself out. But
I want to stop you right there because I think that mentality has paid off dividends for you today. Because when I was at Schicker, we heard tales of Sunset Hill Subaru killing it during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? Like you guys, it was like, oh, they're selling hundreds of cars each month. We're struggling to get 20 or 30. And now we've got a huge allocation. Is that from that? I mean, did you see a huge increase in business during that? Because
I wouldn't say we saw a giant increase. We didn't go down.
Okay.
That's I think our difference is that, we had 1 year we were down in terms of volume, but that was strictly availability.
Yeah.
But if you're a volume dealer like we are, like our goal is to sell them and sell them fast.
Right.
Because then there's going to be another one behind it. And so I didn't take the approach of being like, because a manufacturer is only going to want to replace what's been sold. So if you've got all this car inventory backed up, it doesn't matter like what you did in the past. They're going to go, oh, you've got 3 of these available. You haven't sold any. I'm not going to give you any more. I'm going to go give it to this guy who has none.
Got it. Okay.
And so you still got 3. Well, I would look at it and be like, well, those are 3 customers I lost because I still have those cars.
Yes.
I would rather those cars be on the road, me take a deal that I think is fair.
Yeah.
And then I'll get 3 more.
Yeah.
And then I will sell and I'll get 3 more customers.
So when you place your order with Subaru, you can't just go and say like, I want 15 of these Outbacks.
No. It's a turn and earn system.
Okay.
So the only way you get more is if you sell more.
Got it.
And that's kind of how we do it. And that's how most manufacturers do it now is on a turn and earn system. Now, when you get some of the domestics who overproduce, like General Motors, like Stellantis and Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, those are the kings of overproducing right now.
Okay.
You go to if you go to one of those dealerships, they'll have 400 or 500 cars packed up.
Yeah.
So don't let one of them tell you, man, there's 10,000 over. These are hard to get. Like you got 400 of them. Yeah. Like let's just stop. Where Subaru, some of the imports don't have that. They're pretty much like, hey, look, if you want to hold on to your cars and sell them for whatever you got, hey, that's fine. But those are your cars. Those are your cars. We're not going to keep giving you more,
right?
So you can hoard them.
Like, and what would be the point of that? Like, because aren't you paying like a floor plan? Aren't you paying interest on those cars anyway? So it's kind of like it doesn't really make sense to like keep ordering cars that you're not selling, right? Like it doesn't.
Right. I've seen dealers, they try to hoard the cars though.
Why?
Because then they think if I have all the cars, people that want this car have to come to me. And I just find that's a bad strategy. Like it's going to be one of the ones where you're hoping.
Right.
You're not going by what the market is bearing. Right. You're hoping the market shifts in your favor. That's risky. Because then you could have them and then you're stuck with them. And then what happens if the new because the wheel keeps turning. There's either going to be a new, better, latest and greatest model that comes out, or, God forbid you go from if you still have 2023s on the ground and now it's mid-2024, well, who wants the 2023?
Right.
It's already an old car. It's a used car.
Does Subaru have like a final pay thing where like if you've got a vehicle that's over a certain age, it's technically a pre-owned at that point? Like Ford did?
Yes, technically. Yeah. Eventually there'll be a final payout on them.
Yeah.
It's so rare that it happens with a Subaru.
Because they go so fast.
They go so fast. There's really not a lot. There's hardly any incentives on them. Yeah. Like usually Subaru, like a lot of the Japanese, believe in okay, if the cars aren't selling, we just make less.
Okay.
If the car sells better, we find out a way of making more.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
We're not trying to jam them down your throat, and just be like, uncle, we don't want any more.
Well, it's also an interesting point you brought that up too, because in the St. Louis area, there's only four Subaru dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
With Ford, there's 12 or 14 or something like that. It's insane. And that was one of the problems we had in the city was most of our customers were in the county.
Yeah.
Right? Why would they come into the city of St. Louis to buy a car when they can just go right down the street to a Bommarito or an Offenburg or Sunset for that matter, right? So we were competing with all these other dealers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I like working for Subaru is because their market's not oversaturated at all, right?
No. I think the problem is that a lot of the, we're going to get in the weeds here for people when it comes to franchise development. But the problem you have with, I call old brands like GM and Chrysler and Ford is, up until mid 70s to the early 80s, there really wasn't a big import competitor to the volumes that the domestics put out.
Yeah.
And then when people started going, hey, I really like what Toyota's doing, I really like what Honda's doing, I like what Nissan is doing, I like what Volkswagen's doing, I like what Subaru's doing, I like what all these other brands that are kind of coming in the market are doing. Well, franchises, it's not like oh, well, there's too many Targets in town, and so Target went in and closed like 5 stores to make the other profitable.
Right.
Because these are independent businesses. The manufacturer can't just walk into an independent business and say,
you're done.
You're closed.
Yeah.
They have to offer a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do that. And so therefore you'll have 15 Ford stores. Way too many Ford stores.
Oh, that's crazy.
To be active and everything else. So they're going to have to do some tricks to try to boost up their profitability, or they're going to have to find a way of making their business model work as a smaller medium dealer, or they got to go the opposite direction and go, I got to be huge.
So I'd like to wrap up our first topic with this question. Where do you see car sales in the next 23 years?
Ooh, what would be the new processes?
Yeah, so right now we're kind of in the golden age of internet sales and all that. Where do you see it going in the next 20 years?
I've told everyone here, to the point where I'm almost getting ready to experiment with it. I think we're getting near the end of the salesperson.
Really?
Now, I'm not saying there will be nobody to help you.
Yeah.
But I think for those who don't know how a dealership chain of command works or how it's usually structured, you have a team of salespeople out there. Depending on your volume, to be anywhere from 3 to 30, if not more. But it depends on how big the dealership is. And then there'll be a sales manager or sales managers, finance department, finance managers. And that's kind of it. And then you'll have, of course, people that handle internet leads. If they don't have an internet department or a BDC like we do, then they'll have leads go out to salespeople, and that'll be kind of combined. But everything kind of flows that direction. You got to start with a salesperson. You won't meet anyone really else unless you have to with a sales manager. And then you'll go to finance, do your financing, and then, then you end up, you're done, and then the salesperson will deliver the car to you, or do the delivery of the car for you. So I think because the way the process is moving, Carvana, CarMax, etc., has shown where you can buy the car online, and they've shown that model. I think it's going to get to where we have specialists here who are product specialists who will show you the car, bring you on the test drive, do the normal salesman stuff, but they're not going to do any negotiations with the customer. And then if you decide you want to do it, if you want to negotiate in person, you would deal with a manager,
Straight to the manager.
Straight to the manager.
Okay.
And then I think from there, it's all kind of done. That person would probably be dual role. They'll probably finance it and negotiate the car for you.
Okay.
And if you don't want to go through that process, you can buy the whole thing online. You can finance it online. You can purchase it online.
Technically, you could do that now.
You could do that right now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more cumbersome.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been streamlined, at least on our side.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of Carvana.
Yeah.
Just because they're doing it on used cars.
Yeah.
Used cars, I feel like
it's a little tricky because what if you get a lemon, or what if you get a really bad one?
I always say used cars are like snowflakes and fingerprints. No two are alike.
Right.
New cars, they're all the same.
Right.
Like, you're not going to go and be like here and go, oh, that white limited Outback, ooh, that's a special one. It's right next to 20 others that look exactly the same and drive exactly the same, and they are the same at that point.
Yeah.
It's how they're taken care of afterwards. And so I think really, like, you need to still see those in person. Like, I've seen so many horror stories of people that have got these sight unseens through, like, Carvana or whatever. Yeah. They get the car and it looks the part, and then they drive it and it's just a total junk box.
And you've already signed that contract. You're done.
Yeah, you're done. It's over. Yeah. Like, hey, man, that's like, okay, you could try to fight with them and do their return policy that they've got. God bless you. You know?
Right.
Or some of these other things, and they don't service cars. They don't do a lot of this other stuff, and you're kind of left out there. I definitely don't see the Tesla model like taking over. No, I think the other electric car makers, I think, are actually starting to admit that they wish they had dealers, because what I think a lot of people don't understand is the costs that go involved. Mm-hmm. Everyone always says, oh, I'm just waiting for this manufacturer to start selling direct. Why can't I buy it direct? It sounds good until you have a problem.
Yeah. How do you get your service taken care of? Or
well, if you just think of the money involved, like, think of, let's just take Ford for example. All right, because Ford's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Subaru's not everywhere, actually. Believe it or not. Like, if you go to South Dakota, there's like one or two in the whole state.
I don't think I saw one when I was there just a few weeks ago.
Like, there's a couple. That's it.
Yeah.
So if you live in rural South Dakota, you probably don't drive a Subaru.
My family drives all Fords.
Probably because it's very easy to find a Ford dealer.
Oh, absolutely it is. I think Mackins or something.
So it's, hey, I get that. But say, okay, so let's say you're used to that. And now Ford has gone and said, we're getting rid of the dealer model. And everyone's applauding. Yay! Okay, there's a couple of things that you've got to take away. One, if you do that, it'll be just like Tesla. There are no trade-ins. We don't care.
Tesla doesn't take a trade.
They do not.
Really?
Yeah, they don't do, like, if you go, like, if they do, if you actually look at it, they actually don't sell used cars. They go straight to auction with them, and that's it. They don't care. They don't want your used car.
That makes sense. Why would a manufacturer?
Why does a manufacturer want to deal with your old car?
Your old car.
And if you've got an old 150,000 mile car that barely runs, they're like, I don't want it.
Yeah, I'm only taking it because I'm making a deal for it. It's like right. It's like the one linchpin in the deal.
Right. You think that Ford's going to invest in having 100,000 trade appraisers across the nation? No. Yeah. It's in a convenient location for me. All right, take this Subaru building right here. This is a $10 million building.
I did not know that. It looks like it.
So one market, if you were probably to rebuild every dealer in this network, and there's only 4, you're looking at $40 million plus.
Yeah, easy.
Before you've opened it, before you've staffed it, before you put anything.
Yeah.
Times that by the top 100 markets in the United States. Well, now you're at how many billions of dollars?
It's got to be in the billions.
No personnel, mind you.
Yeah.
No people. And you're already into the billions of costs. And that's a gift that keeps on giving, Yeah. So they're not going to want to spend all of that. There'll be like one Ford dealer in a big city. There'll be one Chevy dealer, one Toyota dealer.
I think that would be a nightmare.
Yes, it would
to deal with, because you think about if we had one Subaru dealer just for the city of St. Louis,
right.
That. Just trying to get in to
buy a
car would be
just
a
trying
nightmare.
to get in.
Not to mention service and all that other shit.
Right. So when you have some of these EV startups that come out, they're coming out and they're all of a sudden like, ooh, we did not think about a lot of this.
Yeah.
We all thought because I remember reading automotive news when Tesla and Rivian were hyping that we're following the Apple Store model. Yeah. We want people who are just focused on our products alone. Mm-hmm. You can get that in any dealership. What would you say, Robert, your Chrysler knowledge is working at a Subaru dealer? Probably pretty low.
It's pretty low, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
But the Subaru knowledge, probably pretty high.
Compared to others.
Yeah. You know, when you go to ask a lot of our salespeople, they're probably super high.
Absolutely. We've got a couple of reps around here that are just, they know what color, what trim level, what you can get in what, and off the top.
And if you asked them about a comparative Toyota, they'd look at you and their eyes would glaze over and be like, I have no clue.
No clue.
So you can get that still. So their whole thing was like, well, we want people who are just focused on us. All right, you would have had that. And then they're like, well, and then we want to be able to service customers in our standard. Great, you're still a corporation. You're still this. Mm-hmm. And then when you go in, you start it, and you're like, oh, it costs this much money to do this? That, you know, if I'm going to have a store big enough that will cover a whole city, it's not a $10 million store. It's like a $20 to $50 million store. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, oh, and I've got to have employees. You know, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And I got to do this. And, oh, shoot, I don't like doing this. I don't want to open more of these.
Yeah, there's no way. It's not cost effective in that point, right?
It's not. You spend, as a manufacturer, you would spend so much capital doing it. Yeah. So then it would lead to like things where take Hyundai's experimenting selling cars on Amazon. You know, like, that's going to be great.
That sounds, I like
that. That sounds so cheesy, you know, or different things of that nature where you're like, you know, when you want to get service done, good luck.
Right.
You know, when you want to do this, good luck. So I am a firm believer that the franchise model is the best model when it comes to our products. Mm-hmm. Because they're not disposable. They're not like, it's not your, you know, $50 of whatever you spent on Amazon this week.
Right.
You know, it's not, you know, your $500 TV or whatever. I mean, these are expensive products. Right. You know.
Second largest investment you'll ever make in your life.
Correct. And you do it multiple times throughout your life.
You do.
You know. And it's a depreciating asset that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep it running, well, you need to maintain it.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't matter if it's an electric vehicle or if it's a gas-powered one.
Yeah.
So I do think the sales process will change, but I don't think the dealership manufacturer relationship will change too much. If it does, we are all going to really regret it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not taking it because this is my job. I'm just saying, like, if you just think of practicalities.
You're a consumer, though. You're not only you're a GM, but you're a consumer.
You're correct.
Yeah.
I'm still going to be buying cars, whether I'm in this business or I'm doing something else. Yeah. I will be buying cars still. I can promise you that.
Yeah. So moving on. This is a topic that you and I have discussed in the past, and one of the reasons why we kind of wanted to do this podcast to begin with, and that's admin and doc fees. And I've had several customers here especially that are like, you know, I'll ask them, how are you wanting to pay or whatever, and like, I'm paying cash, let me know what any fees are. And I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely, here's our doc fee, here's our admin fee or whatever it is. And they're like, I'm not paying that, but you just told me you're willing to spend $50,000 cash. You're not going to find it, you're going to drop that on the table, but you're going to walk away over a $585 admin fee. And they're like, and they're like, it's the principle of it. And so
my first retort to that is like, man, you must have where do you live?
Yeah. Like, are you in the state of Missouri?
Well, not only that, but like, no, seriously, like, what do you live in? If you live in an apartment, you had to pay an application fee.
Yeah.
You did have to pay a security deposit, did you not?
Deposit, yeah.
Which I know is different than this. Okay, if you have a mortgage, what does $7,000 to $20,000 in closing costs get you?
It gets you the house, and at the end of the day,
right? So,
but it's like a non-negotiable.
It's there. The bank will be like, do you want a house or do you not?
Yeah.
And when those people will not say a word about that stuff, and then when they come at me, they're like, oh my God. And you're like, okay, fine. All right. Are you going to go get your own financing? No. Okay, you're going to finance it through here. Right. Would you like to fill out your own registration and title work? No. Okay, would you like to be able on demand store your documents for the next 10 years? Like I'm legally required to have.
Required. Is it 10?
It's 10 years.
10 years.
I am legally required to maintain copies of everyone's paperwork for 10 years. And when you start going all these other things, or like where I grew up, where I got into the business in Massachusetts, we had to register the car for customers. So
I think I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, so we literally had license plates on hand in a safe. We had to have a trained employee who went through state certification to register cars. It was like having your own DMV person in-house. And we were required to have that person.
The state of Massachusetts was like, there is no way you're not getting out of registering your vehicle for those fees and the sales tax. We're going to make sure we get every dime.
Missouri is 100% the Wild West compared to like where I grew up. Where I grew up, it was like if you had a temp tag on, like there's no temp tags. You either registered your car or you don't.
Yeah.
You know, you either paid your tax or you didn't. And if you didn't, get your car off the road. We're impounding it, and you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Here, it's different. You know, you have your 30 days, and you see temp tags are still out there for 3 years. But we're getting to that point. Like, our doc fees have increased since I've been here.
Yeah.
And people have noticed that.
Yeah.
And I keep telling people, I'm like, the state is taking a portion of this money from the doc fee, and that's to update their systems.
Right, which is abysmal at best.
Right. So it's going to update their systems, and then they're going to require me to do what Massachusetts did, and we're going to be registering cars here.
Is that in the works?
Yeah, that's 100% in the works.
Really?
That's part of the whole bill.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that part of it.
And if you're watching from another state, you might not be interested in that. But it's like there's everyone. We have costs associated with your sale long past when you bought the car.
Yeah. Okay.
So it helps pay for a portion of that. And then the other factor is, okay, do you guys want to I'll get rid of doc fees tomorrow if everyone wants to go back to just paying MSRP.
Right. Yeah,
you know?
that'd be nice.
Because then I got plenty of money to cover all those carrying costs.
Yeah.
But when someone wants to work it down and go, okay, what's your invoice? And I tell them that. Now, what's your holdback? Okay, it's this. I want all of that and another $300. You know? Because now you know what you want. You know what your payment should be. Now you're prepared.
Yeah.
Don't go in there and be like, I saw one of the cars online was listed for $15,000. I want $15,000. Well, all the other cars are priced at $11,000. You know, that's going to be like, no, you can't go for top. You know, or if you're going to go for top, your car better be pristine.
Right.
You know, be honest with yourself, and then you'll be fine. You'll see that all of a sudden the dealer will come in right where you thought. And then when you say, hey, I got this interest rate from the credit union, well, then we're not going to be working with, 10% interest if you qualify for 6. You say, hey, I've got a credit union, they're offering me 6. I'll go with you if you match or beat it.
So if you had to phrase that up, well, how would you say? So to our listeners, like if you had to put it in just like a minute long conversation, like know the car that you want.
Know the car you want. Get some quotes on it.
Get some quotes on it.
Look up, give a realistic evaluation of your car.
Yeah.
Go to Kelly Blue.
Be honest.
Be honest. 3, go to your credit union, your bank, whoever you want to, apply for a loan.
Ahead of time.
Give them the parameters that you've given. Trading on this car, everything else. Here's how much money I want. Pre-qualify me. Then you'll have an interest rate. A deal is pretty much a car deal, and what your payments are is price of the car, money down / trade-in, interest rate, payment. That's it. Focus on getting the numbers for those 3 before you come in.
Yeah.
You will be fine.
Yeah.
You will not have the experience of getting beat up back and forth 300 times, everything else.
Right.
There might be some back and forth because dealers are going to try to make some more money. Most of them will. But if you're being realistic, you can get through it so much faster.
I mean, it's so much easier for you to do it that way too, right?
Yeah.
Especially
you have so many that like don't say this until this point. Don't say that till that point. Don't
Don't tell them how much you want for your trade-in.
Right. Don't tell them that. No, you can tell them how much you want for your trade-in. Just stick to your gun if you really believe that.
Yeah.
Like, stick to your guns. And don't give them a psycho number.
Right.
Like, if you go in, you've got a 10-year-old Honda Accord. Don't come in and say, I want 30 grand. Unless you got one that's gold-plated.
Right.
I mean, you can't go in there and say, okay, because then the dealer's going to be like, this guy's not serious. Like, you're wasting my time. If a lot of dealerships, if they don't think you're serious, they're just not going to waste their time. They're just like, okay, here's some numbers, see you later. So if you're giving realistic numbers that you have said, I want this is what the information I've gotten at has told me. I could be wrong, but I'm going to find out.
Right.
Like, you will see the demeanor change. If they think it's worth that, they will give it.
Yeah.
If they don't think it's worth that, then try another place.
Right.
If you think it'll save you some money. If the next guy quoted you $3,000 more than this guy that is giving you $1,000 less than you wanted for your trade, okay, even if you got the $1,000 more, like, they got to be $4,000 more.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is,
yeah,
to make it even out, and then focus on the bottom line, and you're going to be okay.
You're going to be fine. Dealers, at the end of the day, they are out to make some money, but the dealers, in my experience, the two dealerships that I work for, we are not out to rip customers off, because that's not how you do business. That's not how you do repeat business.
Right.
We are trying to make money, but we're not trying to completely scam you out of
exactly. Now, I will say this just from experience. You've worked at 2 stores. This is my 3rd dealership I've worked for, and if you count my time at Subaru, where I was going in and out of dealerships, I've been inside and outside of dealerships, over 200 plus dealerships. Mm-hmm. And I will say this, very, very rarely have I gone and met a dealer who was just like, I'm trying to just get as much money from these customers as I can. Mm-hmm. It was like, I think I maybe have met one, and that one made my skin crawl and all the different businesses. So there are some bad ones out there, but for the most part, they really just want to take care of you and sell you a car.
Yeah.
And move along, make some money, not tens of thousands of dollars. Your realtor on your last house you bought made way more than the dealer made selling 10 cars today.
Right. Yeah.
Compared to your one transaction on a house.
I tell customers sometimes too, especially when I've gotten a good rapport with them over the internet or over the phone, it's like, I'm not trying to sell you a car today. I'm trying to sell you a car 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Absolutely. I want
you to come back to me.
Right. I want my customers to think they got a fair deal.
Yep.
That we treated them right. We treated them with respect. And I want them to come back for service. Yep. I want them to come back when they have problems. And I want them to come back when they're happy.
Right.
I want them to come back when they are like, when they just need something. We're there for them.
Right.
And I want to sell them their next car. Right. I want to sell their kids a car.
Right.
I want to sell their aunt a car. I want to sell their mother a car, their grandmother a car.
Correct.
I want to sell their friends.
And you're not going to do that by...
And you're not going to do that by ripping them off.
Right. Yeah.
And when you see people who are like, dealers just want to rip you off. No, they don't. Everyone that works here just wants to do their job and go home.
Right. And support themselves. They're a little bit of money.
Right. They're all people. We all have our careers. No one walked in today and said, man, how do I rip some people off today? It's just not that way.
And I'll say, out of the reps that we have, no one is like that.
Right.
At our dealership at all. Like, they want to do everything they can to make that happen.
Yeah, and I see the jaded former salespeople on like the different social media platforms, and they're always saying, "This is how I do." And then usually when you start peeling the onion back of them, they're like, they were a salesman for 6 months at a turn and burn dealership.
Yeah.
And they think they now know the whole industry.
Yeah.
You don't. Like, I'm looking at you guys, and I know that you definitely have, you don't know anything, but you're claiming and you're trying to be a consultant for those people.
Right.
Those people are ripoffs.
And all they're doing is making it even more difficult for those people who listen to them to buy a vehicle because they're coming in, they're already going to rip me off.
Right, because there's the aspect of, if you're trying to be like a social media star or a YouTube guy or you're trying to become a consultant, to help people buy cars so they don't have to negotiate, you're going to bring up the worst of the worst.
Right.
You're going to bring up like what you saw one time happen before, or you're going to give them the extreme cases of what to look for, and it's like, it makes you look like, oh man, I'm reading like a spy novel here of what I have to do to get a car here.
Right.
It's like, you don't really have to do any of that, It's like when dealers, when they're asking, what do you want your payment to be? Or just, they're trying to scam you out and how to move you up the line. No, they're usually just trying to make sure that you're not going to say $300 a month or $200 a month like it was when I started.
Right.
Because people would come in, they still do to this day. They'll come in, they'll look at a very expensive car and go, if you get me to $250, I'll buy it. No money down. Today, buddy.
Today. Cash.
$250. No money down, but I'll pay those payments.
Right.
Like $250. All right, that car's $50,000. All right, so
it would take.
Do you have a home equity line that you can pull $30,000 and do a 30-year mortgage on it?
Right.
Because I got a 6-year loan and you're looking for a $13,000 car, not a $50,000 car.
Right.
Those are usually the people that get mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you got to do the math.
Right.
And as I said, if you do those 3 things before walking into a dealership,
you'll be satisfied every
you
time.
will never be ripped off.
Yep.
You will always go, oh yeah, this wasn't that bad. And you will always feel empowered.
Yep.
But when you don't do those things, because none of those consultants will ever tell you to do those 3 things.
Right.
They'll always tell you, when the dealer brings you out the paper and you see that 4 square, you keep your mouth shut. You don't say a word until you say, I'm leaving.
Right. And then
it's stupid.
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're just trying to figure out what it will take you to buy the car. When I have a guy that walks in and says, sell me the car invoice, I qualified for 6% at my bank, I'm not doing a trade, here's $5,000, I know what my payments are going to be. Are we done? I'm like,
absolutely done.
Hey, sign here. Go. Easiest one of the day. On to the next.
Yep. I have found that the easiest customer is the educated customer.
Absolutely.
They know what they want. They know what to expect.
Right.
There's no surprises.
Yes.
As long as the dealership just stays within those parameters, they leave happy every time.
Oh yeah, I'll have friends that call me and be like, how do I negotiate the deal on this? And I'll be like, okay. And then they'll tell me something like, I'm trying to get to $350, Ryan. I'm like, you trying to get $350 on what? I'm trying to get it on that new Corvette. I want to be $350 a month.
It's like, that doesn't even work, even before we talk about interest.
I'll be like, okay, you got like $60,000 down? What? No.
Yeah.
I got like 3. I'm like, okay. Are you going to mortgage this for the next 50? Can you find a 50-year loan?
Right.
No, I want 5 years. I'll be like, well, you told me about $18,000 worth of money payments.
Right.
And the car you want, it's 80. I'm missing something here. I know you want my help here, and you're my friend, but I'm gonna tell you're being stupid.
Right.
You need to learn math.
Right.
So it's like, as long as you do the math, it's so easy. You could do it today, and you can know right about what you're gonna end up with.
Yeah.
And you could walk out, smile on your face, be like, I got what I wanted, right where I knew it was going to be, and buy happy. Maybe you left $100 on the table. What's your time worth? What's your stress level worth?
Right.
And I'm not saying, hey, look, if you can get more that $100, good for you. But you don't have to get all worked up about it.
Get stressed over it.
You don't have to get stressed
lose
about
sleep
it.
Over it.
Right. Just do the steps before you get to the dealership.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, don't get all emotional about it when you're there. If the guy offers you $3,000 on your $10,000 trade, just be like, man, I'll tell you right now, I want 10. If I don't get 10, that's cool. I am going to leave, and I'm going to go to the next place.
I may come back. If I can't get 10 at the next place, I may come back and take you up on your 3.
Be like, if everyone tells me that's what this is worth, then I guess that's what it's worth.
That's what it's worth.
And be like, I just need to find out myself.
Right.
Because I had that before. They told me your car's worth $3,500. Well, I think it's worth $9,000. And then, well, what if we did 42? No. What if I did 5? No. What if I did 6? No. if I did 7 with your tax savings, it almost equals 10. I'm like, yeah, but imagine my tax savings at 10.
Right.
Let's just stick with 10. If you don't want to do 10, man, we're fine. I'm not against you here. Just stick to your guns. Like, don't get upset about it. Like, I never got upset when they did that. And it was almost like they were like, all right, fine, we'll just do 10.
When you go in to buy a car, and we'll end it on a simple, kind of a fun question here. When you go in to buy a car, do you tell them that you're like the GM of a dealership, or you just kind of like let it?
Typically not.
Yeah.
My last car I bought, I didn't tell them.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like, the car I want, Subaru doesn't sell it. You know.
Okay.
And, I did the inquiry lead. I knew about what the market was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew, what the interest rates were. And I said to him, I was like, hey, look, man, I was selling the car I had. I didn't need to trade in. I said, hey, if you do this, here's this. We're done.
Yeah.
And I knew that was fair. And they were like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what the market is. Exactly. Let's just do what the market says.
Yeah.
Or if they try telling me something silly on interest, I'll be like, hey, man, that's cool. I'll go through my bank. Because, we'll get a commission on selling a loan.
Yeah.
To the bank.
Yeah.
But if some will try to make it up and make more commission, a way to avoid that is knowing what it is, knowing what you can get.
Yeah.
Go, hey, look, you can tell me like 9%. I'm already qualified at 6. Why would I pay 9 when I get 6?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what if we did 6? Well, we're done.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay,
sign
me up. Let's go.
Yeah. So I think we're going to end it on that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our first ever podcast on this channel. Like I said earlier, we're going to try and do one a month, different topics, and fun topics too. And be sure to like and subscribe and hit us up on the YouTubes and the Facebooks.
The YouTubes, the TikToks,
the TikToks,
yeah, Facebook, wherever social media will take us.
Right. Ryan, again, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down. This has been really enjoyable, and I actually learned a lot too during this.
Yeah, I had fun.
So good deal. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. We will see you next time.